All right, so we're diving deep today into the 2025 NFL Draft. Specifically, Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of the year, which just came out just a couple days ago on January 25th. And this is right after the deadline. For underclassmen to declare, now Jeremiah, he's not just some random dude on the internet, throwing out names.
No.
He's a respected analyst for NFL media. And the best part is, he bases his mock draft on actual intel that he gets from around the league. So it's kind of like we're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that insider information. That makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
And it is really interesting to see how this draft class is shaping up. And Jeremiah actually says it's a little unusual. He says there's a ton of exceptional talent at the top, but he thinks the best value picks are actually going to be between picks 20 and 60. Interesting.
Not usually how it goes.
No, not typically.
Yeah.
Usually it's like the top 10 is where all the big names are. But he's saying there's a lot of depth in this class, particularly running back, tight end, and defensive line. But he says it's not quite as strong for quarterbacks and wide receivers as we saw last year.
That's a big difference. Last year, it felt like quarterbacks were all anyone was talking about.
Yeah, it really did.
Okay, so before we dive into specific picks, there's one thing we got to remember. The draft order for picks 29 through 32, it's still up in the air. Depends on how the playoffs shake out.
Yeah, a little mystery, right.
Big time. Okay, so let's start with the picks. That we do know. Number 1 overall. Jeremiah has the Tennessee Titans taking edge rusher Abdul from Penn State. Now,
Yeah.
A lot of people were expecting the Titans to take a quarterback with that number 1 pick. So why go with defense instead?
So this is where I think Jeremiah's insight is really valuable. He's saying that the Titans front office, they believe that Abdul is a generational talent. He's saying this is like a once-in-a-decade kind of player. Yeah, and when you have a chance to draft someone like that, you almost have to throw your initial needs out the window. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Because you might not get another chance.
Yeah.
To get a player like that, it sounds like the Titans think they can address their quarterback situation later in the draft, or even through free agency.
So they're banking on Carter being such a game changer on defense that it's worth the risk of potentially waiting on a quarterback.
Right. They're taking a big gamble.
Bold move. All right. What about the Cleveland Browns at number 2?
So Jeremiah has them taking Travis Hunter, the two-way star from Colorado.
This guy was incredible. Won the Heisman, playing both wide receiver and cornerback.
Yep, exactly. So if the Browns pick him, they've got a big decision to make.
Offense or defense?
Yeah. Which side of the ball does he play on?
Where do you think he'd be more impactful?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Most analysts, I think, see Hunter as a defensive superstar.
Yeah.
Just given his incredible instincts at corner and his playmaking ability.
I mean, he did win the Heisman as a defensive player.
Right. But Jeremiah actually thinks that Hunter's true potential is on offense. And he even projects him as a wide receiver in the NFL.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical, I have to admit.
I mean, you and me both. But what's Jeremiah's reasoning there?
Well, he points to Hunter's elite athleticism, his route running ability, and his knack for making big plays after the catch. He thinks Hunter has the potential to be a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, a guy who can single-handedly elevate an offense. He even compared him to a young Calvin Johnson.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty high praise.
That's a bold prediction.
It is.
If the Browns do draft Hunter, it'll be fascinating to see if they buy into that vision.
Yeah, will they put him on offense? We'll have to see.
Okay, so pick number 3. Jeremiah has the New York Giants finally addressing their need at quarterback. He's got them taking Cam Ward from Miami.
Yeah, the Giants have been desperate for a franchise quarterback for years now.
Seems like forever.
And Ward, he's got a strong arm, he's mobile, and he's shown some real leadership qualities, which has made him a top prospect in this class. But there are some questions about his accuracy and his decision-making, especially against tougher competition.
So a little bit of a high-risk, high-reward type of player.
Exactly.
Sounds like the Giants are hoping he develops into the next Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, they need that kind of spark.
Okay, well, if the Giants are taking a risk on their quarterback, the Las Vegas Raiders seem to be going with a safer, more experienced option at number 6. Jeremiah has them taking Shedeur Sanders, son of the legendary Deion Sanders.
Oh yeah, this pick definitely raises some eyebrows.
It does.
It's not that Sanders isn't talented. Yeah, he's a polished passer. He's got a strong understanding of the game, especially after playing for his dad at Colorado. But some people might wonder, if he's really worthy of a top 10 pick.
Yeah, and what makes this even more interesting is the Tom Brady connection, right? Brady's a part owner of the Raiders now.
Right.
And he's obviously known for his ability to develop young quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. Jeremiah is speculating that Brady might have actually played a role in this pick. Maybe he sees something special in Sanders that reminds him of himself.
That's a fascinating story. If it's true.
It is. Can you imagine being a young quarterback and having Tom Brady as your owner, A&D, your mentor?
Talk about an incredible opportunity. All right, so we've got the top 6 picks, and there are already some big surprises and intriguing storylines. But let's not forget about the rest of the first round. Are there any other picks that jump out at you before we get into that sweet spot for value between picks 20 and 60?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are a couple picks that caught my eye that I think really highlight the strategic decisions that teams are making when they're building their rosters. Like at pick number 12, Jeremiah has the Dallas Cowboys, selecting running back Ashton Jeanty from Boise State.
Now, the Cowboys already have a pretty solid running back in Tony Pollard. So this pick seems, I don't know, a little unexpected.
Yeah, I could see why you'd say that. But Jeremiah thinks Jeanty is a special talent. He compares him to other successful Boise State running backs, like Doug Martin and Jay Ajayi. Both had really productive NFL careers.
Oh, yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, so even though they have Pollard, the Cowboys might be thinking long-term. Pollard's getting older, and Jeanty could be the future of their running game.
Makes sense. Planning for the future.
Right. And then later in the first round, at pick number 28, Jeremiah has the Detroit Lions, selecting edge rusher Mike Green from Marshall.
Now, I'll admit I'm not super familiar with Mike Green.
Yeah, he's the guy who put up some really impressive numbers in college, but he's not exactly a household name yet.
Okay, so why are the Lions targeting him?
Well, Jeremiah highlights Green's elite speed and his explosiveness off the edge. He says he's the kind of player who can consistently pressure the quarterback and disrupt plays in the backfield. And for the Lions, who are still building up their defense, adding a dynamic pass rusher like Green could be huge for them.
It seems like a lot of teams in this draft are focusing on building up their defenses.
It does seem that way.
Which makes sense, I guess, given how high-powered offenses have become in the NFL.
Yeah, you need a strong defense to compete.
It's all about finding the right balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need both sides of the ball working together.
Exactly.
But let's not forget about those value picks in the 20 to 60 range that Jeremiah was talking about. That's where things can get really interesting. For teams looking to find hidden gems and build some depth on the rosters.
All right, well, let's dive into that next then. What are some of the players who could be steals for their respective teams in that part of the draft?
Jeremiah calls picks 20 through 60 the sweet spot for value in this draft. And I think he's right. This is where you often see teams find those hidden gems. Players who might not have been the biggest stars in college, but have the potential to really blossom in the NFL. And this year's class, it's particularly deep in that range.
So give us the inside scoop. Who are some of those potential steals that have Jeremiah so excited?
Well, one player who stands out is tight end Ja'Cory Brooks from Alabama. He's projected to go at pick number 29 to the Washington Commanders, a team that could really use a boost at that position. Jeremiah sees Brooks as like the complete package. He can block effectively, he can catch passes reliably, and he can create mismatches in the passing game. He thinks Brooks could become a real safety valve. For Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, who's entering his second year.
Yeah, that would be huge for Daniels and the Commanders' offense. A reliable tight end can make all the difference for a young quarterback, especially in a division as competitive as the NFC East. But it's not just about offense. Jeremiah also highlights some defensive players in this range who could make a big impact.
Oh, absolutely. One intriguing prospect is defensive tackle Derek Harmon from Oregon, projected to go at pick number 30 to the Buffalo Bills. Harmon's a bit of a disruptor in the middle of the defensive line. Jeremiah describes him as a player with incredible twitch, which means he has exceptional quickness and agility for a guy his size, allowing him to penetrate offensive lines and make plays in the backfield.
So even though the Bills already have a strong defense, adding a player like Harmon would just make them even more formidable.
Right, it's like adding another weapon to their arsenal.
And I bet Bills fans would love to see him wreaking havoc in the AFC East.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's all about finding those complementary pieces that enhance a team's existing strengths. And speaking of complementary pieces, Jeremiah has wide receiver Luther Burden III from Missouri, going at pick number 25 to the Houston Texans.
With Stephon Diggs potentially leaving in free agency, the Texans desperately need playmakers on offense, so this pick seems to make a lot of sense. But Is Burden ready to fill Diggs' shoes?
Jeremiah seems to think so. He actually compares Burden to Diggs, praising his dynamic route running ability, his speed, and his knack for making big plays downfield. If Burden can live up to those expectations, he could be a game changer for the Texans' offense.
All right, so we've talked about some potential offensive stars in this range. What about on the defensive side? Are there any other hidden gems Jeremiah has identified?
There are a couple. One that caught my eye is defensive tackle Shedeur Sanders from South Carolina, projected to go at pick number 31 to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Now, the Eagles already have a pretty stacked defensive line, so adding another defensive tackle might seem like overkill.
It might, but Jeremiah points out that Sanders possesses that same twitch quality we talked about with Harmon. He's incredibly quick and agile for his size, allowing him to slip past blockers and disrupt plays in the backfield. And the Eagles, they clearly believe in building from a position of strength, and adding a disruptive force like Sanders would just make their already dominant defensive line even scarier.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we're good, but we can always be better.
Right.
That's the mentality of a championship caliber team. And speaking of championship caliber teams, at pick number 32, Jeremiah has the Kansas City Chiefs, closing out the first round by selecting edge rusher James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee.
This pick has the potential to be a major steal for the Chiefs. Some analysts even have Pierce going higher in the draft, so for him to fall to number 32 seems like a gift. Jeremiah raves about Pierce's elite speed and his proven production off the edge.
And we all know how much the Chiefs value speed and explosiveness. With Pierce on the opposite side of the field from Chris Jones, they could have a truly dominant defense to complement their high-powered offense.
It's a scary thought for the rest of the league. The Chiefs already have one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL, and now they're adding a potential game changer on defense. They're clearly in win-now mode, and this pick just reinforces that commitment.
Okay, so we've covered some of the top picks. We've explored that sweet spot for value in the 20-60 range, and we've even touched on some potential steals in the late first round. But this is just Jeremiah's first mock draft of the year. A lot can change between now and April, when the actual draft takes place.
Exactly. And remember, the NFL Scouting Combine is coming up at the end of February. That's always a crucial event for draft prospects, giving them a chance to showcase their skills. In front of scouts and coaches from all 32 teams, we could see some players rise up draft boards based on their combine performance, while others might fall. It's all part of the intrigue and unpredictability of the draft process.
So what does all this mean for you, our dedicated listener? Well, it means you're now armed with some valuable insights into the 2025 NFL Draft. You know which players are considered the top prospects, which teams have the biggest needs, and where some of the potential steals might be hiding. But there's more to the draft than just the first round, right?
Oh, right. There are hidden gems to be found throughout all 7 rounds. So as we get closer to the draft, we'll continue to provide you with more deep dives, analysis, and expert opinions to help you navigate this exciting and ever-changing landscape. We'll be tracking all the latest developments, from free agency moves to pro day workouts, to keep you informed and entertained every step of the way.
Awesome. But for now, we want to hear from you. Out of all the picks Jeremiah laid out, which one surprised you the most? Or which pick do you think will have the biggest impact on the 2025 NFL season? Hit us up on social media and let us know what you think. We love hearing your thoughts. And it's always fun to see how your mock drafts stack up against the experts. It's really cool to see how these mock drafts come together. It's not just about guessing who goes where. It's more about understanding the strategy behind each pick. What are the team's needs? What kind of scheme are they running? Are they looking for a player who can contribute right away? Or are they drafting for the future? That's what makes the draft so fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. It's a complex puzzle, and each pick is a piece that fits into a larger plan.
Exactly. And like you were saying earlier, the NFL Draft is more than just about the first round. There are hidden gems to be found throughout all 7 rounds.
Oh, absolutely. You see guys all the time who might not have been big names in college.
Yeah.
But they come into the NFL, and they just explode and become stars.
It happens every year.
It really does.
So, as we get closer to the draft, we'll definitely be diving deeper into some of those later round prospects to give you an even broader perspective on the whole draft landscape.
Yeah, we'll make sure we cover it all.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from the top picks to the potential steals, and we've even talked about the upcoming NFL Combine and how that could shake things up. But I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
I'm listening. We've talked a lot about how teams are trying to find the right pieces to fit their systems and build a championship contender. But what about the players themselves? What are their dreams? What are their motivations, I think sometimes. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and the analysis, but at the end of the day, these are young men with aspirations and ambitions, and for many of them, the NFL draft. It's the culmination of years of hard work and dedication.
That's a really good point. We tend to focus on the teams and their strategies. But the draft is also about individual stories. Stories of perseverance, resilience, and the pursuit of excellence. These players have overcome so much to get to this point. They've pushed themselves to the limit. And regardless of where they're drafted or what team they end up on, they all deserve our respect and admiration.
I completely agree. So as we continue to dive deeper into the 2025 NFL Draft, let's remember to appreciate not just the strategic moves and the potential for success, but also the human element of this whole thing. These are young men with dreams, and the draft is their chance to make those dreams a reality.
Well said. And this is just the beginning of the journey for these guys. The draft is just one step. The real work begins when they step onto the field and start competing for a spot on an NFL roster.
And that's when the real fun begins. For us as fans, it's going to be an exciting ride, and we'll be here every step of the way to give you the insights and analysis you need to follow along. So buckle up, get your mock drafts ready, and be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the 2025 NFL Draft. Until then.